I don't want your ugly face's child. I have a better option. Harper's voice cut through the crowded rooftop party like a knife through butter, her perfectly manicured finger pointing at me while her work friends erupted in laughter. The Seattle skyline twinkled behind her, but all I could see was the cruel smirk on my wife's face as she delivered what felt like the punchline to a joke I'd never heard. Before we dive deeper into the story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I stood there holding 2 drinks. Hers was a $15 craft cocktail. Mine was a beer that suddenly tasted like disappointment. The rain had stopped, but the air still carried that Pacific Northwest dampness that seemed to seep into everything, including my marriage. Roland looks like he's seen a ghost, Desmond Rake chuckled, his arm sliding around Harper's waist with the casual confidence of a man who clearly knew more about my wife than I did. His teeth were too white, his hair too perfect, and his wellness influencer smile too practiced. Everything about him screamed fake, but Harper was eating it up. More like he's finally seeing the truth, Harper shot back, and her squad of mean girl coworkers cackled like hyenas. Jessica, the blonde one with the nose job, actually snorted champagne. I guess I missed the punchline. But don't worry, babe, the joke's on you. The thought rolled through my head with the kind of dark humor that had gotten me through 12 years of building my landscape architecture business from nothing, through my father's passing, through Harper's increasingly cold shoulders, and late nights at work conferences. Well, I said, setting down her drink on the nearest table, I suppose I should congratulate you on finding someone who meets your standards. I looked directly at Desmond, though I have to ask, does your wife Ava know about your better options? The laughter died. Desmond's smile flickered like a bad neon sign. Harper's face flushed red. Roland, don't be... Ugly? I finished. Too late for that, apparently. I took a long pull of my beer, studying the crowd of health and nutrition consultants who'd spent the evening treating me like I was something they'd scrape off their organic, free-range shoes. You know what's funny? I always thought marriage was about loving someone despite their flaws. Guess I was wrong about that, too. The rooftop fell silent except for the distant hum of Seattle traffic below. Harper's mouth opened and closed like a fish, and for the first time in months, I felt something other than resignation. I felt the stirring of a plan. Enjoy your party, I said, heading for the elevator. I'll see you at home, honey. We have so much to talk about. The elevator doors closed on Harper's panicked expression, and I smiled for the first time in weeks. If she wanted to play games, I'd show her what a real player looked like. After all, I'd learned a thing or two about strategy during my amateur boxing days, and the first rule was simple. Never let your opponent see the knockout punch coming. My phone buzzed as the elevator descended. A text from Sam Patel, my best friend and boxing coach. How's the fancy party? You look miserable in Harper's Instagram stories. I typed back, just got schooled, time to go back to school myself. Gym's open late if you need to hit something. I might take you up on that, but first, I need to do some homework. The elevator reached the parking garage, and I walked to my truck, a practical Ford F-150 that Harper constantly complained about. It's not the right image, she'd say. What will people think? Well, now I knew what she really thought. I sat in the truck for a moment, rain beginning to spatter the windshield, and pulled out my phone. Harper's Instagram was still active. She was posting stories from the party in real time. I scrolled through them, studying faces, noting who was laughing, who looked uncomfortable, who was recording. Then I opened a new browser window and started researching Desmond Rake. 30 minutes later, I had a basic profile. Married to Ava Rake for 8 years, 2 kids, owned a wellness consulting business that seemed to specialize in selling overpriced supplements to desperate housewives. His LinkedIn showed a pattern of job hopping, and his Instagram was full of shirtless gym selfies and motivational quotes about living your best life. I also found something interesting. A Yelp review from 6 months ago where someone accused him of hitting on married clients. The review had been taken down, but Google Cache is forever. My phone buzzed. Harper, where did you go? You're embarrassing me. I stared at the text for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Let her wonder. Let her worry. Instead, I drove to Sam's gym. Sam's Fitness was the kind of old-school boxing gym that smelled like sweat, leather, and honest work. No fancy equipment, no Instagram-worthy lighting, just heavy bags, speed bags, and a ring where people settled their problems the hard way. Sam was waiting for me, a compact Indian-American guy in his 40s who taught me everything I knew about fighting and, more importantly, about knowing when not to fight. You look like hell, he said, tossing me a pair of gloves. Feel worse. I started wrapping my hands. Harper decided to announce to her entire office that I'm too ugly to father her children. Sam winced. In public? Rooftop party, about 50 people. Her boyfriend was there too. Boyfriend? Sam's eyebrows shot up. She's cheating? His name's Desmond Rake. Looks like a Ken doll that went to business school. I finished wrapping and pulled on the gloves. The whole thing was planned, Sam. She wanted to humiliate me. So what are you going to do? I hit the heavy bag, feeling the satisfying thud reverberate through my shoulders. I'm going to get educated. Meaning? Another punch, harder this time. Meaning I'm going to learn everything there is to know about my wife and her boyfriend, and then I'm going to teach them both a lesson about consequences. Sam held the bag steady. Roland, you know I love you like a brother, but you need to be smart about this. No cops, no lawyers you can't afford, no moves that blow back on you. I'm not talking about anything illegal. Jab, cross, hook. I'm talking about playing by their rules. Harper wants to destroy my reputation? Fine. Let's see how she likes it when the tables turn. What do you mean? I paused, breathing hard. Harper's company has a strict policy about workplace relationships. I looked it up on their website while I was sitting in the parking garage. Employees can be terminated for inappropriate conduct that reflects poorly on the company. Sam nodded slowly. And a public affair would qualify. Especially if it involved humiliating a spouse in front of clients and colleagues. I resumed punching. But I need proof. Real proof. Not just my word against theirs. How are you going to get that? I smiled grimly. Harper's always been careless with her phone. She leaves it lying around, never logs out of anything. And Desmond strikes me as the type who likes to document his conquests. We spent the next hour working the bags and sparring. Sam was right. I needed to be smart about this. But as we trained, a plan began forming in my mind. Harper thought she held all the cards, but she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. By the time I got home, it was nearly midnight. Harper's car wasn't in the driveway. I wasn't surprised. Our condo was a sterile, modern space that Harper had decorated in shades of white and gray. Minimalist chic, she called it. I called it a hospital room. Everything was perfectly arranged, perfectly clean, perfectly cold. I poured myself a whiskey and sat in my leather chair, the one piece of furniture Harper hadn't replaced, and waited. She came home at 2 a.m., trying to be quiet. I heard her heels on the hardwood, heard her pause when she saw me sitting in the dark. Roland, what are you doing up? I turned on the lamp. Thinking. She looked beautiful and disheveled, her hair slightly mussed, her lipstick gone. The sight of her should have hurt, but instead I felt oddly detached, like I was studying a specimen. About what? She kicked off her heels, trying to act casual. About ugly, I said. You know, it's funny. I never thought of myself as ugly before tonight, but you seemed pretty convinced. Harper's face flushed. Roland, I was drunk. I didn't mean... Yes, you did. I took a sip of whiskey. The question is, why now? Why announce it to the world? She sat on the couch, suddenly looking very young and very guilty. I don't know what you want me to say. I want you to tell me about Desmond. The color drained from her face. What about him? How long? She was quiet for a long moment. Then, 3 months. Do you love him? Another pause. I think so. I nodded, feeling strangely calm. And you want a divorce? Yes. Okay. I finished my whiskey and stood up. Then we'll get divorced. Harper looked surprised. Just like that? Just like that. I headed for the stairs. But Harper, next time you want to end a marriage, maybe don't humiliate your husband in front of 50 people. It tends to make things complicated. I was halfway up the stairs when she called after me. What do you mean, complicated? I turned back, smiling. You'll find out. The next morning, Harper was gone before I woke up. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Gone to work early. We should talk tonight. I crumpled the note and threw it away. We were done talking. Instead, I called my office and told them I was taking a few personal days. Then I got to work. Harper had left her iPad on the kitchen counter, still logged into all her accounts. Careless, but then again, she'd never had a reason to be careful before. I spent the morning scrolling through her messages, emails, and photo galleries. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. The affair with Desmond had started 4 months ago at a company retreat in Portland. There were dozens of photos, hotel rooms, restaurant dates, weekend trips I'd been told were girls' weekends. There were text conversations that made my stomach turn, not just because of the private content, but because of how they talked about me. Roland's working late again, one message read. God, he's so boring. All he talks about is plants and dirt. Desmond's response, "When are you going to dump the landscaper and upgrade?" "Soon. I just need to figure out the finances. He built the business, so I need to be smart about it." "My lawyer says wives are entitled to half of everything. You could take him for a fortune and start fresh with someone who actually deserves you." I screenshot everything. But the real goldmine was Harper's group chat with her work friends. They'd been planning last night's humiliation for weeks. "I'm finally going to tell Roland what I really think of him," Harper had written. "Des will be there for support." Jessica had responded, "OMG, yes. It's about time. He's so beneath you." "I know. I can't believe I wasted my 30s on him. But Des says public breakups are cleaner. Less room for the guy to argue or make a scene. Plus, you'll have witnesses if he gets violent or whatever." My hands were shaking as I read that last part. They'd actually planned for me to lose my temper, probably hoping I'd do something stupid that would give Harper ammunition in a divorce proceeding, but I hadn't, and now I had ammunition of my own. I spent the afternoon researching Desmond more thoroughly. His business was registered to his home address, which meant he was working out of the house he shared with his wife and kids. His social media was full of family photos. Ava was pretty in a quiet, understated way, and their kids looked like good students and soccer players. I found Ava's Facebook page. She worked part-time as a nurse and seemed to spend most of her energy on her children's activities. Her posts were full of school events, soccer games, and family dinners. She looked happy. She deserved to know what her husband was doing, but I needed to be careful. If I was going to blow up Harper's world, I had to make sure I didn't get caught in the explosion. I drove to an electronics store and bought a cheap prepaid phone and a small digital camera. Then I parked across the street from Harper's office building and waited. At 6 p.m., Harper and Desmond emerged together. They walked to his BMW, got in, and drove toward downtown. I followed at a distance, feeling like a character in one of those detective novels Sam was always reading. They went to an upscale restaurant in Belltown, the kind of place that charged $30 for a piece of fish. I parked where I could see them through the window and started taking photos with the telephoto lens I'd bought. They were all over each other, holding hands across the table, feeding each other appetizers, kissing like teenagers. It was disgusting, but it was also evidence. After dinner, they went to a hotel, the same hotel from Harper's photos. I waited in the parking garage until they came down 3 hours later, disheveled and laughing. More photos. When I got home, Harper's car was already in the driveway. I found her in the kitchen, making herself a salad. "Where were you?" she asked, not looking up. "Driving around, thinking." "About what?" "About how much I don't know about my own wife." I opened the refrigerator and grabbed a beer. "For instance, I didn't know you thought I was boring." She froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. "What?" "I didn't know you considered our marriage a waste of your 30s. Her face went white. "Roland, And I definitely didn't know you and your friends planned last night's little performance." I took a long drink of beer, watching her panic. "But I'm learning so much today." "You went through my phone." It wasn't a question. "Your iPad, actually. You left it on the counter. Very careless for someone planning a secret affair." Harper set down her fork. "What do you want?" "I want you to understand something," I said calmly. "You think you're smarter than me. You think you've got this all figured out, but you made one big mistake." "What's that?" I smiled. "You forgot that I'm not just a landscaper. I'm a businessman. And in business, information is power." Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and I saw Desmond's name on the screen. "Go ahead," I said. "Answer it. Tell him I know everything." She didn't move. "No? Then let me tell you what's going to happen. You're going to break up with Desmond. You're going to quit your job, and you're going to move out of my house." "Your house?" Harper's voice was shrill. "This is our house. Actually, it's my house. I bought it before we were married, and Washington is a separate property state for premarital assets. You might want to consult a lawyer about that." "You can't just throw me out." "I'm not throwing you out. I'm giving you a choice. End the affair and try to salvage what's left of our marriage, or continue with your boyfriend and face the consequences." "What consequences?" I pulled out my phone and showed her one of the photos from the restaurant. "Desmond's wife Ava seems like a nice woman. I bet she'd be interested to see these." Harper's face crumpled. "You wouldn't? Try me." Harper chose Desmond. I found out the next morning when I woke up to find half her clothes gone and a note on the pillow. "I'm staying with a friend. My lawyer will be in touch." Her friend, I assumed, was Desmond, or maybe one of her work cronies. It didn't matter. What mattered was that she'd called my bluff and lost. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and opened my laptop. Time to play hardball. First, I sent an anonymous email to Harper's HR department. The subject line was inappropriate workplace conduct, and I attached photos of Harper and Desmond at the restaurant, along with screenshots of their text conversations discussing their affair and its impact on company morale. Then I created a fake Gmail account and sent Ava Rake a carefully worded message. I thought you should know what your husband is doing. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but you deserve the truth. I attached the hotel photos. Finally, I posted the restaurant photos to a local gossip forum that Harper's crowd was known to frequent, with the caption, "Spotted. Local wellness guru cheating on his wife with married coworker. So much for family values." Then I went to work. My landscape architecture firm was small but successful. Just me, 2 full-time employees, and a handful of contractors. We specialized in sustainable urban design, and I'd built a solid reputation over 12 years of honest work. My guys, Mike and Danny, could tell something was wrong. "You look like hell, boss," Mike said as we reviewed plans for a new community garden project. "Wife troubles," I said simply. Danny, who'd been through 2 divorces, nodded sympathetically. "Want to talk about it?" "She's cheating. We're getting divorced." "Ah, shit. I'm sorry, Roland." "It is what it is." I rolled up the plans. "But I might need to take some time off to deal with lawyers and such." "Whatever you need," Mike said. "We've got your back." It felt good to be around people who respected me, who valued what I brought to the table. Harper's world was all about image and status and who you knew. My world was about building things that lasted. My phone rang. "Harper." "Roland, what did you do?" "I kept my promise. How's your day going?" "I've been suspended pending investigation, Desmond too." "That's unfortunate." "And someone sent photos to Ava. She's filing for divorce." "Also unfortunate." "This is insane. You can't just destroy people's lives because you're hurt." I walked outside, away from Mike and Danny. "I'm not destroying anything, Harper. I'm just shining a light on what was already there." "You're ruining my career." "You ruined your career when you decided to have an affair with a coworker and then humiliate your husband in front of 50 people. I'm just making sure there are consequences." "I'm coming over. We need to talk." "No, you're not. You made your choice. Live with it." I hung up. An hour later, my phone rang again. Unknown number. "Is this Roland Kellman?" "Who's asking?" "This is Desmond Rake. We need to talk." I smiled. "Do we?" "You're messing with the wrong guy, Roland. I'm not going to let you destroy my marriage over your hurt feelings. Your marriage was destroyed the moment you started screwing my wife. I just documented it." "Meet me tonight, 7 p.m., the parking garage at Pike Place Market. We'll settle this like men." The line went silent. I stared at my phone for a moment, then called Sam. "He wants to meet me in a parking garage," I told him. "Sounds like he wants to fight." "Probably." "You going?" I thought about it. Desmond was younger than me, probably stronger, and definitely angrier. But he was also soft, a gym rat who'd never been in a real fight, and I had 12 years of boxing training. "Yeah," I said. "I'm going, but I want you there as backup." "Roland." "Hidden backup, just in case things get out of hand." Sam sighed. "This is a bad idea." "Probably, but I'm tired of being the victim in this story." That evening, I drove to Pike Place Market. The tourist crowds were gone, leaving just the die-hard locals and the late-shift workers. The parking garage was dimly lit and mostly empty. Desmond was waiting by his BMW, still dressed in his work clothes, expensive slacks and a button-down shirt that probably cost more than I made in a day. He looked like what he was, a privileged pretty boy who'd never had to fight for anything in his life. "You came," he said as I approached. "You asked nicely." He stepped closer, trying to intimidate me with his height advantage. "Here's how this is going to work. You're going to call off your little revenge campaign. You're going to tell Harper's company that you made everything up, and you're going to disappear from our lives." "Or what?" "Or I'll make you disappear." I laughed. "Desmond, you're a wellness consultant who sells overpriced vitamins to housewives. The scariest thing about you is your Yelp reviews." His face flushed red. "You think you're tough because you're some blue-collar tough guy? You're nothing. Harper's embarrassed to be seen with you. And yet she was married to me for 8 years while you were just a side piece." He swung at me. I saw it coming from a mile away, a wild, telegraphed haymaker that any decent boxer could have avoided blindfolded. I slipped to the side, let his momentum carry him past me, then grabbed his shirt and used his own weight to slam him face first into the concrete pillar behind me. He bounced off and staggered backward, red liquid streaming from his nose. "Jesus Christ!" he gasped. You broke my nose. No, I didn't. If I'd broken your nose, you'd be unconscious. I straightened my jacket. But I'm happy to demonstrate the difference if you'd like. He fumbled for his phone. I'm calling the police. Go ahead. Tell them how you tried to assault me in a parking garage because I caught you cheating with my wife. I'm sure they'll be very sympathetic. Desmond lowered the phone, finally understanding that he was in over his head. This isn't over, he said, trying to salvage some dignity. Yes, it is. I walked back toward my truck. And Desmond? Next time you want to threaten someone, maybe don't do it in a parking garage with security cameras. I pointed to the camera mounted on the pillar above us. His face went white. Smile, I said. You're on candid camera. The fallout was swift and brutal. Harper's company fired both her and Desmond after a 3-day investigation. The photos I'd provided, combined with witness statements from the rooftop party, painted a clear picture of unprofessional conduct that violated multiple company policies. Ava Rake filed for divorce and got a restraining order after Desmond showed up at her house with his broken nose, ranting about conspiracies and revenge. The photos I'd sent her were just the tip of the iceberg. Once she started looking, she found evidence of at least 3 other affairs. Harper moved in with Jessica, her work friend, since Desmond was no longer an option. She tried calling me dozens of times, alternating between rage and pleading, but I'd learned to let them go to voicemail. The local gossip forum exploded with the story. Seattle's wellness community was small and incestuous, and everyone knew everyone. Harper and Desmond became cautionary tales, their names whispered at yoga studios and organic cafes across the city. But Harper wasn't done fighting. She hired a lawyer, a sharp-dressed woman named Patricia Vance, who specialized in high-conflict divorces. They demanded half of everything: the house, the business, my retirement accounts, even my truck. Your wife is entitled to marital property, Patricia explained during our first mediation session, regardless of the circumstances of your separation. My lawyer, a rumpled guy named Bob Chen, who looked like he'd rather be fishing, shuffled through his papers. My client is willing to be reasonable, but Mrs. Kellman's conduct has been... My client's personal life is irrelevant to the division of marital assets, Patricia interrupted. Harper sat next to her lawyer, looking polished and professional in a way that reminded me why I'd fallen in love with her in the first place. But her eyes were cold, calculating. This wasn't about emotion anymore. This was about money. I built that business from nothing, I said. She never worked a day in it. But she supported you while you built it, Patricia replied. She's entitled to compensation for that support. The meeting went nowhere. Harper wanted half of everything, and I wasn't willing to give it to her. We scheduled another session for the following week. That night I met Sam at the gym. How bad is it? He asked as we warmed up. She wants half the business. Sam winced. Can she get it? Maybe. Washington is a community property state. Even if I can prove she cheated, it might not matter for the property division. So what are you going to do? I hit the heavy bag, thinking. I'm going to make her an offer she can't refuse. What kind of offer? The kind that reminds her why she shouldn't have messed with me in the first place. The next morning, I drove to Jessica's apartment. Harper's car was in the parking lot, along with Desmond's BMW. Apparently, they were still together despite everything. I sat in my truck and waited. At 10 a.m., Harper emerged alone, dressed for a job interview. She was trying to rebuild her career, but word had gotten around the Seattle wellness community. Nobody wanted to hire the woman who'd had an affair with a coworker and humiliated her husband in public. I followed her to a Starbucks in Capitol Hill. She ordered her usual, a skinny vanilla latte with oat milk, and sat at a corner table with her laptop. I walked in 5 minutes later and bought a regular coffee. Black. Hello, Harper. She looked up, startled. What are you doing here? Having coffee. Mind if I sit? She gestured to the empty chair across from her, her expression wary. How's the job search going? I asked. Fine. Really? Because I heard Wellness Northwest passed on you, and Green Life Consulting, and that new place in Fremont. Her face flushed. Are you sabotaging my interviews? I don't need to. Your reputation is doing that all by itself. What do you want, Roland? I leaned forward. I want to make you a deal. I'm listening. You drop the demand for half the business. You take a reasonable settlement, say $50,000 and your car, and you disappear from Seattle. That's ridiculous. I'm entitled to... You're entitled to what a judge decides you're entitled to. But here's the thing, Harper. I've been doing some research into your boyfriend's business practices. Her eyes narrowed. What kind of research? I pulled out my phone and showed her a screenshot of a Better Business Bureau complaint against Desmond's company. Turns out selling unregulated supplements with false health claims is illegal. The FDA is very interested in companies that promise miracle weight loss without clinical trials. So Desmond's been using your connections in the wellness community to expand his client base. You've been helping him market illegal products to people who trust you. The color drained from her face. I didn't know. Doesn't matter. You're an accessory. And if this goes to trial, it's all going to come out. Your affair, your public humiliation of me, your involvement in Desmond's scam business. You'll be lucky to get a job selling smoothies at a mall food court. Harper stared at me for a long moment. You've really thought this through, haven't you? I told you I was a businessman. And if I take your offer, you disappear. New city, fresh start, no more drama. I keep quiet about Desmond's business practices, and you get to rebuild your life somewhere else. $50,000 isn't enough to start over. It's more than you'll get if we go to trial and you end up facing federal charges for supplement fraud. She closed her laptop. I need to think about it. You have 24 hours. I stood up to leave, then turned back. Oh, and Harper? You might want to distance yourself from Desmond. The FDA investigation is just getting started, and they tend to prosecute everyone in the chain. Her face went white. Harper took the deal. She signed the papers the next day, her hand shaking as she wrote her name. $50,000, her car, and a promise to leave Seattle within 30 days. You won, she said as we left the lawyer's office. No, I replied. I survived. But I wasn't done yet. Desmond had cost me my marriage, my peace of mind, and nearly half my business. He deserved a special goodbye. I waited until the weekend, then drove to his new apartment, a shabby place in Ballard that was a far cry from the house he'd shared with Ava. His BMW was in the parking lot, looking out of place among the Hondas and Toyotas. I parked across the street and called him. What do you want? He answered on the first ring. To congratulate you. On what? On destroying your marriage, your career, and your business in less than 2 weeks. That's got to be some kind of record. Go to hell, Roland. Actually, I'm calling to give you some friendly advice. You might want to talk to a criminal defense attorney. What are you talking about? The FDA investigation into your supplement business turns out making false health claims is a federal crime. Who knew? The line was quiet for a moment. You snake. I didn't make you sell fake diet pills, Desmond. I just made sure the right people knew about it. You can't prove anything. I don't need to prove anything. I just need to point the investigators in the right direction. Your marketing materials, your client testimonials, your claims about FDA approval that doesn't exist, it's all there in black and white. This is harassment. This is consequences. I started my truck. Have a nice life, Desmond. What's left of it? Yeah, I hung up and drove home. 3 days later, the FDA raided Desmond's apartment and seized his computers, files, and remaining inventory. The investigation would take months, but the writing was on the wall. His business was finished, and he was looking at potential federal charges. Harper left Seattle on a Tuesday morning. I watched from my office window as she loaded her car with the few possessions she'd kept. She looked older, smaller somehow, diminished by the consequences of her choices. She didn't look up at my window, didn't wave goodbye. She just drove away, heading south toward Portland or maybe California. I never found out where she ended up, and I didn't care. That evening, Sam and I went out for drinks at our usual place, a dive bar near the gym that served honest whiskey and minded its own business. So what now? Sam asked as we clinked glasses. Now I rebuild. The business? Everything. I took a sip of whiskey, feeling the burn. Harper was right about one thing. I did waste my 30s on her, but I'm not wasting my 40s. Any regrets? I thought about it. About the marriage? Yeah. About how I handled the divorce? No. You were pretty ruthless. I was efficient. There's a difference, Sam nodded. She underestimated you. Everyone did. Harper, Desmond, even their lawyers. They saw a blue-collar landscaper who'd be easy to push around. I smiled. They forgot that you don't build a successful business by being a pushover. So what's next? I'm thinking about expanding the company. Maybe hiring a few more people, taking on bigger projects. The city's growing, and there's a lot of demand for sustainable design. Sounds good. And I'm thinking about dating again, eventually. Sam raised an eyebrow. Anyone in mind? Maybe. There's a woman who works for the Parks Department, Sarah Mitchell. We've collaborated on a few projects. She's smart, funny, doesn't seem to think I'm ugly. High standards, I laughed. I've learned to appreciate the simple things. We finished our drinks and walked out into the Seattle night. The rain had stopped, and the city lights reflected off the wet pavement like scattered diamonds. "Roland?" Sam said as we reached our cars. "Yeah?" "For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing." "Thanks." Harper and Desmond played a game they didn't understand, with stakes they couldn't afford to lose. You just made sure they understood the rules. I drove home through the quiet streets, thinking about Sam's words. Harper had wanted to humiliate me, to break me down so she could build herself up. She'd thought I was weak, pathetic, someone she could discard without consequences. She'd been wrong about that, just like she'd been wrong about so many other things. My house now, not our house, was dark and quiet when I pulled into the driveway. I sat in the truck for a moment, looking at the place I'd worked so hard to buy and maintain. It wasn't much by Harper's standards, but it was mine, earned through honest work and careful planning. Inside, I poured myself a final whiskey and sat in my leather chair, the one piece of furniture Harper had never been able to replace. The house felt different now, not empty, but peaceful, like a weight had been lifted. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "This is Ava Rake. I wanted to thank you for opening my eyes. The divorce is final, and I'm starting over. I hope you're doing the same." I typed back, "I am. Good luck with everything." "You too. And Roland, you're not ugly. You're honest. That's much rarer." I smiled and set the phone aside. Outside, Seattle hummed with life. People building things, creating things, working towards something better. Harper and Desmond had been parasites, feeding off other people's work and dreams. But they were gone now, banished to whatever corner of the world accepted people who'd burned their bridges and squandered their chances. I finished my whiskey and headed upstairs to bed. Tomorrow, I had a business to run, projects to complete, a life to rebuild. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be mine. And for the first time in months, that felt like enough. 6 months later, I was having lunch with Sarah Mitchell at the same restaurant where I'd photographed Harper and Desmond. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I'd learned to appreciate irony. "So," Sarah said, cutting into her salmon, "I heard through the grapevine that your ex-wife moved to Phoenix. Good for her. And that her boyfriend is facing federal charges. Also good for her, I suppose. She's not involved in that anymore." Sarah studied my face. "You're not curious about what happened to them?" "Not particularly." I tried the wine, a nice Pinot Grigio, nothing fancy but honest. I spent too much energy on them already. I'd rather focus on the future. Such as? Such as the woman sitting across from me, if she's interested. Sarah smiled. She might be. We finished lunch and walked through Pike Place Market, past the fish throwers and flower vendors and tourists with their cameras. It was the same market where Desmond had threatened me in the parking garage, but that felt like a different lifetime. "Roland," Sarah said as we stopped to watch the sunset over Elliott Bay. "Yeah?" "I'm glad Harper was stupid enough to let you go." I laughed. "So am I." As we walked back to our cars, I thought about the man I'd been 6 months ago, angry, humiliated, ready to give up. Harper had tried to destroy me, but she'd actually done me a favor. She'd forced me to remember who I really was. Not the weak, accommodating husband she'd wanted me to be, but the fighter who'd built something from nothing and wasn't afraid to defend it. The ugly truth was that Harper had never loved me. She'd loved the idea of me, the security I provided, the life I'd built for her. But when she'd found something she thought was better, she'd been willing to throw me away like yesterday's newspaper. The beautiful truth was that I'd survived. More than survived. I'd thrived. And that was worth more than any marriage built on lies and false promises.